So we just got done doing the Oddities and Curiosities Expo. We had a blast. I met a ton of really rad people. I'm hoping to do it again next year. It's gonna be a very long trip home. Yesterday we were up like all night the night before, and then yesterday night we drove 4 hours down to Austin. Then we did some exploring in the city for a little bit, went and stopped by Toy Joy. Stayed up till about like midnight last night, and then we got up at like 6 a.m. today to get the booth set up and ready for the show. But we had a lot of fun at the show. It was really neat because on the row where we were placed, all of the shows were like just down the way, so we were able to like catch all of the live freak shows and the different exhibitions that they had going on. There were a ton of like really, really rad vendors. So I snuck away from the booth a few times to kind of check out the different vendors that were there and see what was available. I just want to thank everybody in Austin. We had a great time. Everybody was super sweet. Everybody that I met was like freaking rad. I can't tell you like how many times we were like invited to go out to dinner with people. It was really cool to see that like people wanted to open up their home to us to like have us come hang out with them. I did miss the last 2 tutorial Tuesdays, just trying to like play catch up. So I really apologize for that, y'all. Like I really feel bad about missing those. I'm gonna be getting back on track. I just fell behind. We had a death in the family, so that took a huge toll on our family, and I ended up having to take a week to just kind of like, I don't know. It took me about a week to just get back on track following that. So been kind of playing catch up all week. Last week I was working about 18 hours a day trying to get everything ready and sent off to the different businesses to get like the different businesses that were requesting wholesale orders and things like that, because we're in crunch time right now getting ready for Halloween. But I'm going to be making tons of goodies, getting them all ready. I just want to thank everybody who was like super supportive and like sent me all the kind messages and things like that when I had let y'all know that we had suffered a loss in our family. I wanted to check in and kind of let you guys know like how everything went. Okay, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the first step in the process is to go ahead and draw on your spooky pumpkin face. I did this using a colored pencil, but you can use a marker or whatever you guys have at hand. So spooky. Once you get the face drawn on, you're going to want to go ahead and cut out the eyes and the nose and the mouth. You can use a box cutter tool or a knife or an X-Acto like I'm using here. Once you get the face completely cut out, it'll be time to go ahead and start taking out all of those pumpkin guts, aka plastic bags. They're kind of difficult to get started pulling out, but once you get them going, they'll get a little bit easier to pull out as you go. This last bag just did not want to come out for some reason. Okay, now that we got all the bags out, it's time to go ahead and add a little bit more detail to the face. I did this by adding a little bit more of that handmade clay. If you need the recipe, I have that available in video form. Just go ahead and head on back to my channel and check out that video. It's pretty quick and pretty easy to do. All the materials that I use to make my clay can be found at the dollar store. When I sculpted on the face, I decided that I wanted to add some little bits of ridge detail to the face and to the mouth. I didn't feel like he was spooky enough, so I think that adding this little bit of clay detail to the front of the face is definitely helping out with that spooky look. I started out by adding the pieces to the front of the face, and then I worked my way to the eyes. I started to bulk those out a little bit just because I wanted them to kind of stand out. And once we get to the painting part, you'll see what I mean by making them stand out more. It definitely gives them more of a like menacing look to the pumpkin. I also made the nose stand out a little bit more by adding a big old chunk of clay and pressing it firmly into the pumpkin face and then sloping it down so he almost has a skull-like nose. The next part that I started working on was his eyebrows. Like I said, I'm trying to make him look super spooky and menacing, so I figured that if I made his eyes protrude out a little bit more, that would definitely help me in achieving that look. Now, when you guys go to sculpt and add details to the face of your pumpkin sentinel, it doesn't have to be perfect. Matter of fact, the more imperfect, the better it is. Just look at that chin. I think he definitely needed that chin. I think it adds a good touch. I'm adding on a few extra ridge details here to the mouth. And then finishing up the ridge details on those cheeks. When you're adding detailing to the face, if you just dip your fingers or your fingertips into a little bit of water, it'll aid in trying to smooth that clay down to the already dried clay. I decided that once I got done adding ridges to the face that I wasn't as happy with his smile as what I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more clay to either side of his mouth to bring up that smile a little bit further to make him even more menacing. As you can see here, I'm adding a little bit more clay on either side just to kind of widen that smile out a little bit. Once I get some paint on it, you'll see that it's going to make a huge difference in the total look of the pumpkin. After we get done putting on that smile and smoothing everything down, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it all smooth as best as you can. Nobody ever said that there was a perfect pumpkin out there. It'll be time to go ahead and start moving on to that stem. I was really hoping to get this tutorial done in 2 parts, but it's looking like it's going to end up being either a 3 or a 4-part tutorial. I just want to make sure that I'm giving you guys the best tutorial that I can. So I apologize that I had to break it up into so many little parts, but hopefully with the way that it's broken up, it makes it a little bit easier for you to create along with me. And it kind of helps you to account for the dry time in between each one of the steps. To do the stem and make the ridges, I just put on little snakes of clay, and then I kind of pinched them down towards the base of that stem, and then you can either use a clay sculpting tool or I went ahead and just used a colored pencil because not everybody has a clay sculpting tool to kind of create those grooves that are in the stems of the pumpkins. And then I went back in and created some just random grooves and different indentations throughout the whole face so that once I get to painting, those details will show up and make the pumpkin look a little bit more authentic and definitely make this guy look super spooky for sure. All of those little lines that I created, those are going to be black. And then we're going to be highlighting those with orange. So you'll see once I get it all done. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add his arms. Well, it's not exactly his arms. It's just the tubes that we're going to be placing his arms into. We'll accomplish this by cutting a circular hole into the toilet paper roll that we have in the bottom of the pumpkin, and then the tube that I used is from aluminum foil, but you can use like a wooden dowel if you want to. Once we get that arm in place, it's time to go ahead and cut his little cape. I use the gardening cloth that they had at the dollar store. I started off by folding it in half, hamburger style, if you remember that from school. And then I folded it again, hamburger style. And then I tapered it down into a triangle, cut on the non-folded side. And then once I get it shaped down into a triangle that had been cut on the non-folded side, I went ahead and slipped up and tore it to give it that kind of shredded appearance. And then I cut a semicircle out of the folded corner of the triangle to make a hole for the head. And then I placed the whole thing over the pumpkin's head. And then I did a gathering stitch all the way around the circle that I created to gather it up around the pumpkin's neck so that it would stay in place. Now, you don't have to stitch it together. You could probably knot it together, or if you wanted to glue it together, if you're not handy with the needle and thread, you're more than welcome to do that. Once I got that all gathered, stitched together, I went ahead and took all the loose ends and just kind of tied it around his neck. So this is kind of what he looks like before paint. I have maybe one more video to do, and in that video we'll go ahead and get into paint. I hope you guys had a fun time making this guy with me, and I will catch you in the next one.